Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us again today for our brown bag lunch presentation. We're really thrilled to have Maria Zeringue join us. She came on over from Mississippi, and you may end up seeing her again this evening if you go downtown in Lafayette to the Crew to Kenai walking parade. So keep your eyes peeled for that. The Center for Louisiana Studies does host this series, and we will be having 2 more events this spring. We have on March 15th, we have Becca Begno talking about healing traditions and creating community here in Acadiana. And on April 5th, we'll have Helene Thayan talking about Henri Bendel and the fashion tradition and legacy here in Acadiana, something you guys may not know very much about, but is really, really quite interesting and has a global impact. So I really hope you can join us. We'll be back here in Dupree Library, room 221 at 12:30 on both Friday, March 15th and Friday, April 5th. So the Center for Louisiana Studies, if you do not know, is a research institution here at UL Lafayette. We've been around for about 46 years now, and we do have several divisions at the center, including the UL Press, which publishes books, the Research and Archival Division, which houses all of our archival collections, including the archives of Cajun and Creole folklore, which I know that Maria had utilized in her master's work when she was here. And we also have our programming division, which puts on events like this. So please keep up with us on all of our social media channels. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and we have a website and a newsletter. If you signed up when you walked in, or if you forgot, please do so before you leave, and we'll be happy to add you to our email list to otherwise keep you up to date and engaged. We do have a new director at the center. Just want to shout out to Dr. Josh Caffrey sitting in the back. He is our director as of July 1st, and we're really thrilled to have him on board. He's really changed, amped up a lot of our activities, especially with the Roy House activities, which you may see as you drive down Johnson Street. If you get caught at the light at University and Johnston, please look over and examine the construction that is going on the Roy House. It's really exciting, and it really means that we'll one day very soon have a new home for the Center for Louisiana Studies, and we're thrilled about that. So just a little bit of information about Maria. She is a native of Thibodaux, Louisiana, and she currently serves as the Mississippi Arts Commission's Folk and Traditional Arts Director. She runs their grants program and is currently working on a folk arts and civil rights movement exhibit that'll come out next year. While she was here at UL Lafayette, she earned a master's in French, and then she went on to Indiana University and earned another master's in folklore. She has also served as a research and curatorial assistant at the Traditional Arts Indiana and as an associate instructor of folklore at Indiana University. She's published extensively in the Journal of Folklore Research Reviews and the Louisiana Folklore Miscellany, and we're really thrilled to have her here today to talk about her research on Chasing Carnival, an introduction to the Gaines Mardi Gras. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Jennifer. Thank y'all. Yeah. Well, I'm really excited to be here, my old stomping grounds. Did a lot of suffering in this library, working on my thesis, but also had a good time here. I lived here for 7 years, so it's nice to be back and see some familiar faces. All right, so we're going to start by looking at the geography of Gaines, because Mardi Gras is so deeply rooted in the places where it's practiced. So I think it's important that you know the lay of the land and the landscape of Gaines. So first, let's just get us situated where we are. So, you know, we're in Lafayette, and this is Gaines here. Everyone, can everyone see? Okay, all right. So Gaines is in the area called Southeast Louisiana. Lafayette and this surrounding area is the Southwest Louisiana. And are some of you familiar with the couriers that happen in Southwest Louisiana? Yeah, okay, so all of you probably. Well, in Gaines, it is very similar, and also I pointed out another very small town in Southeast Louisiana, that's Shoepick. That's about 6 miles from Thibodaux. Gaines is about 25 miles from Thibodaux. Being from Thibodaux, I guess, my points of reference are just how far it is from Thibodaux. So yeah, Shoepick and Gaines are the only 2 communities in Southeast Louisiana that practice this traditional type of Mardi Gras that is somewhat similar to careers. So in all the other small towns in southeast Louisiana, like Cutoff, Galliano, Golden Meadow, Houma, Thibodaux, Gray, they all have their own Mardi Gras traditions, but all of them are smaller versions of your New Orleans-style float parades. So these are the only two that are very unique to southeast Louisiana. All right, so I'm going to zoom into this map, and we're going to go into southeast Louisiana here. In this area, the geography is very linear. So this kind of curvy line here, this is Bayou Lafourche, and you have two main highways, Highway 1 and Highway 308, that run parallel to the bayou. And this is Bayou Lafourche and Highway 1 and Highway 308. This is the heartbeat of southeast Louisiana. And people who live in this area say, I live up the bayou, like Thibodaux, I live up the bayou, and then people down here live down the bayou. So if we're going down the bayou and then we hit Matthews here, there's a little bitty road called Highway 654. All right, so I zoomed in some more. This is Matthews and Highway 1, Highway 308 and Bayou Lafourche, and this is Highway 654. And so this is the start of Gaines. It's the only main road that runs through Gaines, and it's the only entry and exit in and out of Gaines. So also, like southeast Louisiana, in this kind of up the bayou, down the bayou linear geography, the same thing exists in Gaines. They call it the front of Gaines and the back of Gaines. And so when you're traveling, and that's really important, because that's how community members, that's their frame of reference anywhere in town, if they're in the front or in the back. Okay, so when you're traveling down 654, this first like 7 minutes traveling down the road, you're only seeing like sugarcane fields, there's a gas station and a nursery, and that's it. So the community really starts here in this curve. Gaines kind of makes like a question mark, if you can see it. And I pointed out these two little circles here. So this is the front of Gaines, right here, the start of Gaines, where all the houses and the settlements are. And then this is the back of Gaines. And the back of Gaines is marked by a landmark called the Company Canal. This is a dead end. There's a bridge that crosses this canal, but it's gated because this area here is the old Gaines plantation and it's private property. So it's no longer public lands. So this is what the community views as Gaines and not necessarily the plantation, because now it's called Golden Ranch Plantation. It's like a wilderness refuge, but also it's mostly famous for being like a hunting lodge. You can buy licenses to fish and hunt. So people come to do that, you know, people who have money, I guess. So it's not really community property. So this area here, I'm going to zoom in again, and this is where the Mardi Gras happens. So just in this small, the little curve of the question mark here. So the Mardi Gras starts here in this area, and then they make their way from the front of Gaines, and then they circle back and they go to the back of Gaines. So what the Mardi Gras procession is literally doing is that it's tracing the boundaries of the community. They're making like a big circle or like an oval around the community. So that's why I think that geography is important to the study of Mardi Gras. Okay, so let's get to the actual chase in the Mardi Gras tradition. So what is it? So we know where Gaines is and what it looks like. Wait, let me just get a little sip of water. So in Gaines, on Carnival Day, it's really a tale of two Mardi Gras traditions. There's the parade. The parade happens at 11 a.m. and it lasts till 12 o'clock. It only lasts an hour because from this point to that point, the front to the back is only 2.6 miles, so they don't really have a long way to go. Okay, and so the parade, So there's a parade and then there's a chase. The parade happens from 11 to 12, very short parade, and then there's the chase. So for my talk, I'm going to be focusing on the chase, but I just wanted to show you a few pictures of the parade so you can kind of know everything that happens in Gaines on Carnival Day. The parade is a fairly new addition. The chase has been going on since before the turn of the 20th century. Well, that's as far back as community memory goes. It probably went on even before that. But all the people that I talked to the oldest lady in town, and that's as far back as she can remember. So that's what we got to go with. But the parade was started in 1973, and it was started by the Gaines JC's organization. And they wanted to create a small parade where kids from the community wouldn't have to leave Gaines on Mardi Gras Day to catch beads and see floats. So that's why they created this. And so here's some examples of these floats. That's my Aunt Gail in yellow. I have family from Gaines, so I kind of grew up knowing about it all my life. Most of the floats are very small. They're usually just built up on the back of trailers, and they're either pushed by tractors or trucks. So here's another example of a small float from the Gaines Parade. Here's another one using the Mardi Gras colors. And then I love this one, Gaines Goddesses, pulled by a truck. And I love this one. This shows the creativity of some of these floats. Just kind of using what they have in the back of Gaines, taking an old school bus, cutting off the top and using it as a float. And then this one, a little kiddie float. This is pulled by a ranger, kind of like a souped up golf cart. Because Gaines is such a small town, most people ride around on those rangers. They don't even use cars. So this is kind of like to mimic a little duck blind, and you have some kids throwing beads. All right, so that's the parade. It's very popular in the region. A lot of people from Lockport, Matthews, and Raceland come to the parade because it has a reputation as being a small, family-friendly parade where you can catch a lot of beads and you don't have to be out with your young kids very long. So it's very popular, and after the parade there's a 2-hour gap so that any people not from Gaines who don't want to be a part of the chase and who don't want to be out on the street when the chase is happening, there's a 2-hour block to let those people leave Gaines. So the chase happens at 2 o'clock and it usually runs till about 5 or so, so it lasts about 3 hours. Okay, so I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a brief definition of what the chase is, and then I'm going to back up and give you some details of it. So the chase is a symbolic whipping ritual where men in the community dress up in colorful costumes, kind of similar to what you see in the couriers, and they go from the front of Gaines to the back of Gaines. So that's their procession. And when they get out and stop at houses along the route, they get out and they chase children and they whip them. It's usually taps. It doesn't really hurt. We'll get into those details. So that's kind of the basis of this is what the chase is. So the couriers, they're chasing chickens, and in Gaines and in Shoepick, they're chasing children. Yeah, anyway, so that's what we have to work with here. Okay. All right, back to the maps. All right, so I'm going to just read a brief description because I don't want to miss anything. So this is what happens kind of detail by detail on Mardi Gras Day from 2 to 5 p.m. So on Mardi Gras Day, a flatbed trailer carrying the disguised participants who are also called the Mardi Gras. So the Mardi Gras is the event, but it's also the people in the mask. So the trailer is carrying the Mardi Gras across Highway 654 from one end to the other. And before the chase starts, the Mardi Gras gather together in an open field in the back of Gaines. So this is where they are. They're gathering here, they change into their costumes, and they do their initiation ritual. And I'll talk about that a little later in the presentation. Once the Mardi Gras dress and new participants are initiated, the masked men board the trailer and make their way to the front of town at the official starting point. So right here, where all the houses start. Okay, as the trailer proceeds along the highway towards the front of Gaines, the Mardi Gras are finally revealed to the community. Oh, I lost my spot. Where am I? Okay, oh, here we go. All right, so the Mardi Gras are finally revealed to the neighborhood for the first time, and anticipation builds among the participants and the spectators. As they ride, the maskers tap their supple willow branches used as whips along the trailer sides as a playful warning to the children who know that the Mardi Gras will soon be descending off the trailer to chase and whip them. The tapping of the whips, the jingling of the bells, and the maskers' teasing create a carnivalesque atmosphere that electrifies the public and provokes an array of reactions. Some of the braver children take this brief opportunity to tease the Mardi Gras. They cry back at the Mardi Gras, "You're not going to catch me, you're too slow." And others laugh and wave at the Mardi Gras as they pass, and a few little children even cry at the sight of the Mardi Gras. So this is kind of what's going on. All right, so this picture, this is the Mardi Gras perspective. So this is, they're in the trailer, and this is the moment where they're finally revealing themselves to the community. And they make their first pass from the back of Gaines to the front. And they don't start chasing until they reach the front to go to the back of Gaines again. So I love this picture because you can really see what's going on from the Mardi Gras perspective in the trailer. So like this Mardi Gras here, he has a stack of his switches and he's just beating them against his hands to kind of make some noise. Then you have this Mardi Gras here who's pointing at a kid saying like, "I'm going to get you, you're next, you better be prepared to run." And so they're just making as much noise as they can to kind of create this carnivalesque atmosphere and really excite the public. And this is what it looks like if you're on the street. If you're a kid, this is what you see staring back at you. Just a bunch of scary guys with switches, and they're yelling at you. So, it's a lot of fun. This part is my favorite part of the chase. I just think the anticipation is, it's just better than the actual chase, in my opinion. All right, so what are the kids doing? All right, I love this photo because here you see three boys who are really excited. You can tell like they're kind of nervous though too. It's like this nervous laughter. They probably just told the Mardi Gras like, "You can't catch me, you're too slow." But then they're also like, "Oh God, they have switches, they're gonna come after me." And they're these big guys, And then here you have the parents who grew up in Gaines, they've been chased all their lives and they're just kind of laughing, seeing their kids kind of go through the same things that they went through. So I love this photo, and I think it perfectly kind of sums up what's happening in the kids' minds at this moment. And then there's this photo too. There's kids who love this moment, who are excited, and then look at this Mardi Gras. I mean, he's pointing his switch straight at this little boy. And I'm sure that little boy is kind of scared right now, All right, so I have a quote that I want to read to you from Hanson Bro. Hanson's a Mardi Gras, and he's a leader of the community. He kind of helps manage it and keep it going. And he talks about what's it like to be this kid. So what is he feeling right now? So this is his quote. I have it on the, okay. All right. "The sound of that stick just hitting the truck and making all this noise. Yeah, that's what really got you excited because it was kind of like a percussion line coming through the middle of town. You were sitting on the side of the road. You were talking all this, 'You can't catch me, you can't catch me.' And you just hear the horn going off and people just beating on the trucks with their hands. It's that ticking sound, and you're just getting all excited. You're just waiting for it. And when they finally do come back, you see them. Your heart starts pumping and you're just waiting. All right, they're about to be here. They're about to be here." All right, so that's that moment of anticipation. So what happens when they actually get off the truck? And this is what happens. So they're getting off the trailer, and this is where they're headed, to this house here. There's kids and family waiting for the Mardi Gras, and they're just running for the kids. And what does that look like if you're a kid? This picture here, you see this big blob of these guys in colorful costumes, and some of them are kind of scary. So usually at the sight of this, if you're a child in Gaines, there's usually two reactions. So the first reaction usually comes from smaller kids, kids in elementary school. So this is what they do. All right, so when you see the Mardi Gras coming, you have to get on your knees and you have to put your hands in a prayer in a prayer-like stance, and you have to say pardon, pardon, pardon. And that is Cajun French for pardon me. So what they're implying with putting their hands in prayer and saying pardon is they're implying pardon me for my sins, because we have to think Mardi Gras falls on the day before Ash Wednesday. So this is the big hurrah before one of the most solemn and prayerful periods in the Catholic calendar. So the meaning behind this is the whipping, well, the symbolic whipping is supposed to cleanse them of their sins and get the younger generation ready for Lent and ready for the rest of the year, to kind of cleanse them of their sins and keep them on the right track and say, you know, kind of you better behave for the rest of the year and for Lent. So that's what they're doing here. And when the Mardi Gras come and they see kids who are get on their knees right away, usually they just do a light tap. You know, you can barely feel it. They're just kind of putting the switch on the back of your legs. Or something like this. Usually they'll like taunt them and play with them for a little while. But you know, you can see these kids are enjoying it. They're having a good time. Their mom is taking their picture. All right, and so that is response one. And oh wait, but before I wanted to mention this here. The Mardi Gras doesn't really discriminate, and it's not just kids, it's adults on the ground that kneel on the ground too, but usually it's people that they know. So Gaines is about 1,500 people, really small community. You know, everyone grew up together, went to the same school together, they lived next to each other. So that Mardi Gras there, he probably knows this woman very well, so he can kind of play around with her and make her get on her knees. When I was at the Mardi Gras, so one year I rode with them. Women can't participate, but they just let me ride in the trailer. But the next year, I was like, I just kind of want to be on the side of the road, you know. But whenever I came to you know, when the Mardi Gras came towards me, I just immediately went on my knees because I was actually really scared. I mean, even though like I had studied this thing inside out and knew about it, when you're in that moment, you know, something just kind of takes over you, you know, and you're like, okay, I'm just going to kneel down now, you know. So here's the second response, and this usually happens when you're a teenager and you kind of get the guts to run. You've been chased for all your life as a kid, and now you realize that you're part of the performance too. And it's not only the Mardi Gras that can be entertaining, but the kids can also be entertaining too, and they can make fools out of the Mardi Gras and outrun them. So here we have a bunch of kids who are outrunning the Mardi Gras, a girl here and a guy. This girl ran and she got caught. So usually if you outrun the Mardi Gras and they catch you, they may not be as nice when they whip you, but of course, if they don't know you, then you know, then they won't really whip you that hard. It's all about familiarity. You know, this is a community that knows each other really well, so they can play with each other a little rougher than, you know, strangers. All right, so let's see. Okay, and then also want to talk about the Mardi Gras treatment of like really small children. Usually what they do, just to show them like, this is our tradition, you know, this is what we do in Mardi Gras on Carnival Day. They'll just touch, what he's doing is he just touches the little girl on her hand. Or like little babies that are sitting down in their mom's lap. They'll just kind of touch their leg with the switch, just to show them like, you know, this is our tradition, this is what we do. But they don't actually hurt them, and it's playful. Like the girl in this picture, she's having a good time. This is her grandmother. That's her aunt. They're there kind of reassuring her. Everything's fine. She's safe. And the Mardi Gras is just kind of teasing her a little bit, and she's having fun. So, you know, it's not like whipping and, you know, people are getting upset or getting hurt. It's very playful. All right. So that's what happens in the chase. Now I want to talk about the costumes. And with the costumes, okay, here I am. There are a lot of different variety in the Mardi Gras costume in Gaines. So there's this example here. This is a traditional costume. Usually it's made with materials that you have at your house, like an old shirt. This is scrap material that they just sewed. onto the costume in the Mardi Gras colors. They put a lot of bells and ribbons. And then the mask, that also varies too. A lot of times it's thrifted from Halloween costumes. But then another popular mask that the men in Gaines like to do now is just cut up a cotton t-shirt and put it over their face because it breathes easier than those plastic Halloween costumes. I mean, especially in years when it's hot. I mean, those big Halloween costumes are pretty unbearable. This is another example of a homemade costume. I love this one because he spelled out pardon in Mardi Gras beads, so just kind of nodding to the carnival play there. And then I also love this one. This is a homemade costume where they painted 654, doing a nod to the main highway and the carnival route. So that's the main highway that passes through town, so kind of like some Gaines pride there. Then here's another different type of Mardi Gras, well, two different types of Mardi Gras costumes. What you find is the homemade ones, and then you also see thrifted Halloween costumes. Some Mardi Gras like to just go full out scary and then dress up in a scary costume. This is my cousin Paul. He's from Gaines, and this is an example of the most popular type of carnival costume that exists now. Usually they'll go to thrift stores in Home and Thibodaux, and they'll get the carnival costumes that people who rode in parades the previous year and donated. They'll get those costumes, and they'll embellish them, or sometimes they won't, but usually they'll put bells on them. That's really important to the costumes in Gaines. Okay, so here's another example here. Again, typical Gaines costume, a thrifted carnival costume from a Thibodaux or Homa parade, and a Halloween mask. And then here's another example, just a Spider-Man mask, whatever you have laying around. That one's probably way more breathable than this one. Okay, and then I wanted to show this costume because, as you can see, there's a lot of bells on it. There's probably about 20 bells just on the back alone. And the bells are really important because it's a nod to the older way of running carnival in Gaines. So pre-1972, when the parade started, the chase wasn't actually a procession. It was actually a community-wide hide-and-seek game. It seemed like a lot of fun, but they don't have the time to do it now. With the addition of the parade, they just don't have the hours to do a hide-and-seek game. But what kids would do is they would plan their hiding spots for weeks. They would carve out little caves and hay bales. They would hide in sheds. They would dig ditches and hide in those. And so at 11 o'clock, when the Mardi Gras started, they would go in their hiding spots, and then the Mardi Gras would come out and try to find them. And so when they did find them, that's when they would chase them, and then the kids would have to get on their knees and do the pardon. So in order to level the playing field, what they did was all the Mardi Gras had to have bells on. So really, Mardi Gras, it wasn't about seeing all these bright, colorful costumes. It was about listening for the bells so you can know when the Mardi Gras are coming. So that's why they try to keep the bells now, just as a nod to the older way of doing things. And I want to read a quote from Mark Bro, he's an older Mardi Gras. He's in his 50s, and he was around when the Mardi Gras was more of a hide-and-seek game. And this is him talking about the bells. They would dress with bells on their costumes, and the bells, it was sort of like you being the rabbit and them being the beagle. You were hiding, and you knew that you had a pretty good hideout, but the bells just kept getting closer and closer and closer. And even though they didn't know where you were so afraid that you would take out of a perfectly good hiding spot, and you'd end up getting caught. So that's kind of the older way, and yeah, the bells just kind of nod to pre-1972 carnival. And then I have this picture because Jeremy Bro and some of the older Mardi Gras that still participate, what they do is they want to make sure that every costume has bells on it and that everybody has a costume. So what they do weeks before the carnival is they'll go to thrift stores and they'll get a bunch of these costumes and they'll sew bells on them, because some people do show up without a costume, but you have to have a costume to participate. So they do this so that way, you know, everyone will be in costume. So that's one of the preparations that the people from Gaines do before to get ready for the chase. And then I just wanted to show this picture. A family that I interviewed gave me a stack of photos from the Gaines chase from the 1990s. And this was them, all the Mardi Gras lining up in the 1990s. And you can see that the costumes are still very similar. Thrifted parade costumes, Halloween masks, or just kind of wearing whatever you can find. I love this picture. All right, well, now I'm going to switch it up. I had mentioned the initiation ritual, so I want to talk a little bit about the initiation ritual. Okay. So ever since the start of the parade, in Gaines, they started having outsiders come in and be a part of the carnival. So either some people would stay for the chase after the parade, and since they weren't from Gaines, they didn't really know what this carnival was about, and they would just, you know, see these guys coming for them with switches, and, you know, they didn't know what to do, you know. And also, now, you know, Gaines is not isolated anymore, so people go to high school and they work with people from, you know, other people in the area, you know, Raceland, Matthews, Lockport, and they want to bring their friends to be a part of the chase too, and that's fine, and they welcome people from outside the community to be a part of it. But they started having fights because people from outside were coming in and they didn't know what the chase was about. They didn't know the meaning behind it, so they were getting offended because they were getting whipped and didn't really know. But then also they had these newer Mardi Gras from out of town, you know, friends of people from Gaines who were whipping too hard. And so they started having a lot of fights break out. And so their solution was this initiation ritual. And the initiation ritual basically shows new Mardi Gras how to be a Mardi Gras. So how to play and the bounds of the play, what not to do and what to do. So in Gaines, when you're 16, you can become a Mardi Gras and you have to be initiated. If you're a new person and you're like 32, you still have to be initiated. So if you're new, you can't run unless you're initiated. So this is kind of what happens here. All right, so here's our new recruits lining up against the trailer. And then this is all the veteran Mardi Gras who have been running and don't need to be initiated. So what they do is they line up all the new people. And all of these people have to take turns hitting every one of the new people on the back of their legs, and they give them 2 taps. The first tap is usually a big whack that shows them how not to hit, and then the second whack is a very light tap, and they say, this is how you do it, and they just give a little tap. Now this guy and then this guy here wore shorts, so this is what it looks like. It's kind of like a baptism by fire to be a Mardi Gras if you're not wearing pants. So that's what they do. That's the initiation ritual. Every single Mardi Gras, the veteran Mardi Gras take a turn and they do a light tap and a hard tap showing the Mardi Gras how to play. Okay, and this is the Mardi Gras after the initiation ritual, and now they're ready to start the chase. All right, so some interesting things about the initiation ritual. One, it shows that, you know, on the surface, Mardi Gras seems to be very chaotic, very unstructured, this kind of like wild party. But with things like the initiation ritual, you see how structured the Carnivalesque play really is. I mean, there's rules to it, there's protective measures so that it doesn't collapse and get out of control, and so that you don't have fights. And then another reason why the initiation ritual I think is pretty interesting, because it shows how dynamic Carnival is. You know, when you think about traditions like the Mardi Gras, it's not the same generation, one after the other, doing the exact same thing that their parents and grandparents did. It's very similar, but they're making adaptations to meet the needs of contemporary times. So that's what the Gaines Mardi Gras did here. They had some outsiders come in, some people not understanding how to be a Mardi Gras. So they decided to start a new ritual that is now a huge part of the chase for a decade now. So it just shows the dynamism of and the creativity of Mardi Gras. And also, I interviewed some people who were 15, or well 16, and they were going to be Mardi Gras. And they were very excited about the initiation ritual because they view it as like, that's a rite of passage. You know, they were a kid getting chased, and now they become a man. You know, they enter into adulthood in the community by being able to mask out as a Mardi Gras, as they say. All right, so that's the initiation ritual. Now I want to talk about what does the Mardi Gras mean to the community? What does it do? I mean, you know, it's people whipping kids with a switch. So why do they keep on doing it, you know? So one of the things that Mardi Gras does is community maintenance and formation. So this is something that the community does every year at the same time every year. They do it together. They prepare for their costumes together. They prepare for the floats together. They're sharing this experience together. They're sharing food. A lot of people do boucheries on the side of the road, or like they barbecue on the side of the road. They're talking to each other. They're getting out, and they're just hanging out together. And that makes a strong community. I want to read a quote by Freddie Bro that kind of sums up this community maintenance and formation function of Carnival. Okay. Well, I'm going to read it from there. Okay. I like it because even though you all live in the same neighborhood, you don't always see your neighbors, and you don't always see the people that you live around and get to talk to them. And even if you don't get to talk to them much, even if it's just a hey and a bye and a this and a that, but it gets everybody out. It gets them all doing the same thing. They're all working on floats. They're all running Mardi Gras, you know. They're helping each other out. And I think it makes you closer as a community as a whole, you know, to do stuff like that. And I think it's fun. It's a big party. You know, everybody's drinking. The boucheries, the music. You know, you ride. If you're on a float, you have a blast on the float. If you're off the float, a lot of people just enjoy having a nice day. Like this year was a beautiful day to hang out outside and ride your four-wheeler. And it just gets everybody out and talking to each other. To me, I think that's one of the coolest parts about it. I think that's why it's so important to keep going and make it that way, because the only way to keep a good close-knit community where you know each other is to get out and do things together, to where you know each other and you meet each other. Okay, so that's Carnival as community maintenance. Another thing that I want to talk about is Gaines Carnival as a huge part of the identity of the town. The town is very proud that, you know, they have continued this special tradition, and it's something that doesn't happen a lot in that area. So like I said, it's only Gaines and Shoepick in southeast Louisiana who do this Mardi Gras. And I remember one time after Mardi Gras was over, I went hang out at one of my, my aunt's good friend. My aunt lives in Gaines. And it was Peggy Mathern. She was just so excited and overcome with the Mardi Gras, and she was just saying, like, you know, I think she was in her 70s at that time, but she was like, you know, we've been doing this for so long, and it just makes me feel proud to be from Gaines. And then she just went into this chant, like, we are Vacherie Gaines, we are Vacherie Gaines. So it's something that's really important to them, and this also is kind of summed up in Billy Cresoni's quote, too. Mardi Gras in Gaines, we like to brag about it. We do like to say it's no other place in the world. When it happens, it's a great time. It's when a little bitty community blows up 10 times its size, and kids that always enjoyed themselves grew up with it. We never want to see it die. That's when guys our age can be a kid again. And really, I mean, it brings out the youth in you. It brings you back to what you want to do. It's fun, and I look forward to it every year. So Carnival as part of the elected identity of the community. Another thing that Carnival does for the community is it connects the community with its past. And that's something that weighs pretty heavy on the people who practice the tradition as Mardi Gras, but also just the people in town. The that was something that I heard a lot when I interviewed people, was just that, you know, we can't let it die. This is something that our parents did, that our great-grandparents did, that our great-great-grandparents did. And so it's a shared memory that exists in the past as well as in the present. And I want to read a quote from Caleb Bro that kind of summarizes this, but I'm going to take a sip of water because it's kind of a long one. Okay, this is my favorite quote from all my interviews that I did in the Mardi Gras. And I have like 30 pages of quotes, so, all right. See, I'm a history buff. I love history, I love tradition, I love culture. I can move away from Louisiana for a little while, but I'm here, you know, my heart's here. I don't want to be the generation to let this thing that's been going on since, I used to remember, whether it's the 1700s or the 1800s, whenever that was, when it started. And it's been going on this long. I don't want it to die in my generation. It's important to me because I don't want to be the ones to let it go. If they held on to it for this long, doing the same thing for that long, and I think it's going to hurt, like if we were forced to stop or if the younger ones kind of let it go. But I do see a few of them that kind of get it, you know. But as long as I can run, as I can be in the front, even if I say run, as long as I can walk, even if I have to ride in something, I'm going to try to keep it going. I'm going to try to keep the tradition as close to the beginning as I can, you know. But eventually all good things come to an end, but I just don't want it to happen with me. So that was a sentiment that I heard a lot, like we gotta keep this going. We can't let it die. This connects us to our ancestors. All right, and then the last thing that I want to talk about is the more subversive element of Carnival. And I think that the biggest tension in Carnival is the tension between subversion of social roles, but also affirmation. So the tension between subversion and affirmation. And you see this a lot with the parents and the grandparents, and also the Mardi Gras themselves. I mean, these people who ride in the Mardi Gras are respected members of the community. You know, they're doctors, lawyers, elected officials, you know, respected people. And they're going around dressing up in a Mardi Gras costume and chasing kids with a switch, you know. So it kind of subverts that role. And then also the parents, too. A lot of times you'll see, and in some of these pictures that I showed, you'll see the parents right there, like taking pictures, kind of laughing at their kids, you know. They're also accomplices to this mischief against the kids. Like, for example, in this picture, well, in these two pictures, so these are grandparents, and their grandchildren had ran inside the house to get away from the Mardi Gras. And the grandparents are sitting on their steps, and they're like, all right, just go up and get them, you know. So the grandparents are leading their grandkids to the Mardi Gras switch. So kind of subverting that role of being a protector and keeping them from harm. And then this example, too. The guy let the Mardi Gras go through the window of his trailer to get at his kid. So we're subverting those parental roles. But then you also have affirmation. So you always see this. There's always a parent who's right next to their kid telling them, you know, it's going to be okay. We're going to, you know, I'm going to keep you safe. Yeah, I'm leading you to mischief. I'm also a trickster, but I'm your parent, and I'm not going to, you know, let anything happen to you. And then this guy, he says, you know, now shake the Mardi Gras hand, you know, showing them that, you know, it's all a game, and it's all about, you know, having fun. So there you go. I think I talked long enough. I'm happy to answer any questions that y'all have, if you have any questions, but that's the games Mardi Gras. Thanks.
Questions?
Okay. Well, I'll speak pretty loud, but there may not be an answer to this question, but what's, if any, the geographical significance of starting at the front of games and then going toward the back with the initiation at the back, or why isn't it the other way? Or?
Well, it's because, I can show you on the map. Here we go. No, wait, let me do this. Okay, they start at the back, and it's just a practical reason. So this is where all the houses are, and this is where people are kind of gathered on the side of the road. And then there's a long road You can go down for 5 minutes and it's all sugarcane fields.
Okay.
So they're kind of isolated. And so that way they change into their costumes because they don't want to be seen by the community before, like not in costume. They have to wear their mask. And that's where they do the initiation ritual. It's just space, like they have the space
It's
to
far
do
enough
it there.
from town
Yeah,
to
and it's
not be
kind of these fields are like a buffer between the houses and where people are to where they need to get dressed.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Is there any role for music in this, like when the Mardi Gras are approaching the house and things like that, and how does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. I took this ethnomusicology class. This was my last semester at IU, and we had to do a project on just anything to do with sound or music. And I was like, well, let me see. Maybe I can do. I'm kind of like a carnival scholar at IU or something. Let me see if I can do something with music and carnival. And I was looking at the Gaines Mardi Gras, and really, there is no music. People play music when they're hanging out at their houses, but it's just like a radio, that's like really loud. The sound is the bells. That is the most important sound mark of the carnival. And they want that sound of the bells to be at the forefront. So really, it's just bell chimes. That's the music that kind of like is the soundtrack of the Gaines Carnival. But music doesn't play a role at all. There's not like your traditional, like the career songs that they play, whenever they go to the houses. That doesn't exist in Gaines.
So the music would get in the way of the community.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never thought about it, but the music sort of telegraphs that the Mardi Gras is coming too in a career,
Yeah, yeah.
It's sort of like, it serves the same function as the bells.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Perhaps I missed this, but do we know when the chase began?
The farthest that I can place it back is in like the 1880s, and that's just as far back as people in town can remember from stories that are passed down. But I don't know. There's no records, at least that I could find, that put a date on when it started. Yeah.
And I have a second question.
Okay.
The entire community is involved, so I'm assuming the entire community is white?
Yeah, most of the community is white. There are a few African Americans that participate in it, but those are guys that married women from Gaines. But yeah, the majority of the community, the demographics is mostly white, yeah.
How different is this Mardi Gras from the shoe pick Mardi Gras?
So I haven't done too much research on it, but there is a great article in the Louisiana Folklife Miscellany. Her name is Madeline Domingue Petrie Cagle. It's a long name. I can give it to you after, but she did a great piece on it in Louisiana Folklife Miscellany. You can get it online at like louisianafolklife.org. So some of the differences that I know is the Mardi Gras chase the kids on four-wheelers. So it's kind of wilder. And then also, they don't say pardon like they do in Gaines. They start saying like the Our Father prayer. They start saying prayers. But I think the one in shoe pick is, I don't know if it's necessarily a procession. It seems like it's more spread out, kind of like how the chase used to be in Gaines, where they just kind of chased kids that were hiding. Yeah.
Why the children? What happened where they were no longer chasing chickens, but now chasing the children?
I don't think they were ever chasing chickens in Gaines. I think that, okay, so in my research, it's been a few years, so it's kind of fuzzy, but there used to be whipping rituals in other areas too. I know that Marcia Godet wrote an article about it in St. Martin Parish, I think, and they also had a whipping ritual, but I think the only maybe reason why there's not that many left is probably because they were whipping children. I don't know how many people would put up with that for that long, you know. Because there are people in Gaines who don't like the Mardi Gras, and people who wouldn't be interviewed by me because they thought that it was a bad idea and they didn't want to be a part of it. So they usually stay in their houses or leave, go somewhere else on Mardi Gras Day too. So I think most of the community really likes it, but I mean there are people who don't like it for that reason. One lady I talked to got whipped pretty hard one year, and so she never participated again. So yeah.
I remember, like in the 90s, like late 90s, there was like Inside Edition or something like that. It's one of the, back when everybody watched TV and not Netflix and stuff. And Marcia Gaudet was interviewed on this national
cool.
like tabloid television show about the whipping tradition, Mardi Gras traditions, and defending them as part of a tradition and not, ritual abuse,
Right.
And things like that. So. Yeah, it's too bad she's not here to share some of
Yeah.
that, but it's true. Outsiders really don't quite know how to process that.
Even people from Matthews and Lockport, I mean, they just live like 2 minutes away, and they're freaked out by it. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
Oh, Callie wants me to tell a story about this priest, but. It was a part. I have a whole bunch of stories, but I have to like censor myself because it would just be here all day. But I was going to talk about it at the end when I talk about like parents' roles, kind of subverting, what they normally are as like protectors and stuff. And I was going to use an example of a priest. There was a priest named Father Al, and he loved Mardi Gras, and he always participated in Mardi Gras every year, and. These girls, they went into his car to hide from the Mardi Gras, and they locked themselves in. And they were just kind of teasing the Mardi Gras, being like, ha ha, you'll never get us, we're locked in this car, And then Father Al comes up, and they're like, oh, Father Al, he's not going to, give us away to the Mardi Gras, he's a priest, And what they didn't know is how much Father Al loved Mardi Gras. So, of course, he unlocks his car and, gives the children over to the Mardi Gras. So, yeah. But there's a lot of stories about Father Al. He was quite the trickster and loved to play along and trick the kids. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Maria.
Yeah, thanks, y'all.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. All right.
Incredibly entertaining and informative, and kind of gives you a perspective on a different Mardi Gras tradition than perhaps you're familiar with. So. If you want to go and experience something new, she's got the map out,
Yeah, that's the map to Gaines, yeah.
Yeah. And please do join us again on Friday, March 15th. We'll have Becca Begna. We'll be back here in this room. And then again also on Friday, April 5th with Helene Thyan. So thank you again. If you forgot to sign in on when you arrived, please do so before you leave. And have a great Mardi Gras. Maybe we'll see you tonight at the walking parade for Crew de Canaille, or tomorrow night there's also the Rio parade. So thanks, everybody.